I ever hear today is that we have a massive housing crisis. So I checked it out and guess what? They're bloody right. I'm Biko Konstantinos and today I'm going to give you my pitch to solve the housing crisis. Make sure you crack this video a like and why not subscribe to my channel. I may sometimes go on a long-winded rant like I'm probably going to do today. Who doesn't like that? Housing affordability is absolute crap. For the past 40 years, house prices have pretty much skyrocketed while wages have barely even grown. So now, the gap between house prices and wages is like a gulf. So in the last 40 years, we've gone from affordable, where a typical house was about 3 or 4 times the average wage, to expensive, then to not affordable, then to an affordability crisis, and now to crap me. This is really bad. If you want to check out my analysis on just how unaffordable housing has become, check out this video here. So what's the consequences if we don't do anything to try and improve housing affordability? First, there'll be an ever-growing wealth gap between those who own property and those who don't own property. There'll be more and more people who won't be able to afford a property, and those who do have property will be able to afford more and more. And you've also got corporations now taking over residential properties. Because more and more people won't be able to afford a property, property owners will have more of a monopoly on rents, and renters won't be able to do much about it because they just can't buy their own. So the big concern for me is that you have a growing section of society that are being pushed down towards poverty, which will translate into increased homelessness, potentially increased crime, and just all the other societal issues you have with a growing number of people in poverty. Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, here's my proposal to fix the housing crisis. And just a disclaimer, I'm not a housing expert or a policy expert or any sort of expert. However, these are just my thoughts and I welcome your views as well. First, we need to get rid of current housing policies that actually create or cause extra demand for property. If our goal is more affordable property, we need house prices to decline so they become a much lower multiple of average income or average wages. Now, don't stone me if you're a property owner, because I 100% support investment into property. But for the future prosperity of all our society and all the population, we need housing to become more affordable for more people. So how can we reduce demand? You can perhaps ban foreign ownership, so only citizens of your country can buy the property in that country. That could prevent wealthy people from other countries increasing the demand for housing in your country. Talking about wealthy people, they sometimes will just leave properties empty. Now, to make more properties available, Canada has increased the amount they're taxing on empty properties to provide more availability for renters. That's another option. You could look at the taxation policies around housing. I'd scrap generous policies like negative gearing, which basically means you get rewarded if you're making a loss on your investment property. And you could ban large corporations from owning residential property or limit the amount of investment properties a person can buy before maybe they're taxed higher or something like that. What we need to do, in my opinion, is to overhaul our housing policies to reduce overall demand. Because at the moment, housing is pretty much considered a sure bet because you've got all your housing policies supporting it. You've got government intervention to support it as well. Because at the moment, all of our policies, all of our government intervention basically encourages us to speculate on property, to get as much debt and get as much property as we can. And why? Because it's pretty much a guaranteed sure thing at the moment. And why is that? Because the government is not going to allow housing to crash because the economy would then crash. And policies favor property owners and they don't favor people without a property. So because of that, nearly everyone thinks that the best time to buy a property is 20 years ago, and if not then, right now, because they always go up. So you've got this idea as an investor that property always goes up, so it's a risk-free investment, which just creates mass speculation. And why wouldn't it? Would you invest in something that's pretty much guaranteed to give you an amazing return and government backed because they never want housing to crash? That's the dilemma we have today, and that's why many countries are not willing to take any real action on housing affordability. I list Australia as a prime example. They have an election coming up and the two major parties have only proposed sweetener type policies that might help some home buyers get into the market, but only add extra demand to housing, which ends up increasing housing prices, which makes the housing crisis even worse. And that's why I'm going on such a rant today. Yes, you have to make some hard decisions, but hard decisions is needed if you have a crisis. Secondly, increase supply. Implement initiatives that will either increase supply of housing or enable or support the increased supply of housing. I'm not proposing specific solutions here, but just to make sure that we plan to make sure that the supply of housing in an area meets the overall demand. So if the population is growing in an area, we need to make sure that there's increased supply to cater for that increased population, so we don't end up with too many people fighting over too few properties, which will definitely increase demand and increase prices. Lastly, let's support and encourage innovation. There's many innovative ideas out there from many smart people and companies. Let's remove some of the barriers and fast track the pilot of some of these innovative ideas. For example, you might have prefabricated homes that could be made very cheaply, and you could create a number of affordable housing options very quickly. I don't know all the logistics, but you could pilot this to see if it could work. Let's open up a think tank, because there could be many solutions that could really help improve availability and, in doing so, affordability. So there you have my proposal to fix the housing crisis. Yes, it's very simplistic to a very complex problem, but these are just my thoughts. But to me, that's a start. So what do you think? Am I on the right track, or am I completely off my rocker? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, because if we work together, we can pressure our governments into making real change for the benefit of all people. And that's what I really want to see. I'm Biko Konstantinos, and I'll catch you in my next video.